Hey everyone, Justin here. If you're brand new to the sport of triathlon and don't know the gear you need, it can be super daunting. So today I'm going over the pieces of gear you absolutely have to get into racing and training triathlon. Alright, so like I said, my name's Justin, you're on Justin Does Triathlon, and this is a video which is for people who are brand new to the sport and you don't know the gear you need. So this list is going to be stuff that works really well for me. It's a fantastic starting point. Two quick things before we get in. One, this is all middle of the road gear that's supposed to last you a really long time. Figure out if you like the sport, get you racing and training, and then down the road, if you want to spend more money and figure out your own preferences, you absolutely can, but this is all stuff that's worked really well for me. And then secondly, this isn't necessarily everything that I personally use or that other people use. This is just a list of stuff you absolutely have to have when you get started so you don't have to spend a ton of money and you aren't left wanting on race day for gear you don't have. Lastly, before we get too much in, I just want to say there are links to everything that I use specifically in the description below, and I hope at the end of the video, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I love interacting with people, and subscribe. You can follow along with me as I work my way to Ironman Chattanooga. So with that all out of the way, let's dive into number one on the list, and that is a good swimsuit. And specifically, you want to get something that's skin tight for both training and racing. When I started swimming, I just used my baggy swim shorts, and I thought they would be fine. I didn't know why everybody bought the fancy tight swimmer, but the reality is that extra drag actually is so impactful in the water that your body position is severely impacted. So rather than being flat on top of the water, you're actually more at this angle trying to go through the water. And obviously it's going to be slower, but even if you don't care about speed, that can really mess up your form and even potentially down the road cause injuries from having such bad form. You're not getting the body rotation that you should have. So investing in a good swimsuit right away for your training and then use that on race day is really important. I did an entire video on why I think men particularly should be in briefs. They're more comfortable, they're cheaper, and they're easier to put on, or the biggies. For both men and women, the brand that I would really recommend is Speedo, and then specifically their Endurance Plus fabric. So chlorine really eats swimsuits, so if you're going to be doing a lot of training time in the pool, eventually your swimsuits will wear down. The Speedo Endurance Plus models are super cheap. They come in both men and women's. It's just a fabric. For men, I recommend getting the briefs, but if you want to get jammers, that's fine too. You can use them on race day. And then for women, just a one piece that's fairly tight is going to work really well. Number two item on our list is a good pair of goggles. These are the Speedo Vanquishers. They're what I use. Full video review there. They work really well for me. The important thing when you're trying on goggles for the first time is to actually go into a store, take them out of their packaging, put them on your face, and try to suction them on. And if they stay on your face for 5, 10, 15 seconds and you can feel that suction without the strap, they're gonna work really well and they're gonna seal and they're not gonna leak. A lot of times people think goggles leak because they don't have them tight enough, but it's really a fit issue. You should not have to really ratchet your goggles down. For your first race, if you're just doing a pool swim or you're doing a ton of training, stick with these clear ones. They're a lot easier to see indoors. You can see the pool line a little bit better. If you're doing a lot of outdoor swimming, then I would move up to the mirrored, kind of darker tinted ones. It's a lot better for outdoors. You don't have to look into the sun and be blinded with every single stroke. You can use these indoors, so if you only can afford one pair of goggles, go with the darker ones because you can use them indoors and it'll just be a little darker, and then they're great to use outdoors. These guys work really well indoors, obviously, but you cannot use them outdoors at all. One other thing real quick, don't get stressed about anti-fog. Every single coating I've ever seen always wears off. So yeah, some of them are going to be better out of the box, but they always wear off in a few weeks. Spit in them or lick them before they get wet from the water. Rub your spit around a little bit and then rinse them off, and I don't have any fog problems that way. Go for fit, get something that's 10, 15, 20 bucks and you're good. Number three on our list is clothing, and what do you wear on race day for both the bike and the run. So there's two quick options here and I'm going to go over them both. The cheaper version is essentially after you get out of the swim, you can then put on running shorts and a running top and then bike using your running gear. It's obviously not going to be quite as comfortable. So you get out of the pool, you put on your running shorts and your running shirt, and then you go bike in running clothes. And then once you're off your bike, you just continue on your run. The better option, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of training on the bike, is dedicated bike clothing. The first thing I would get is bike shorts, not bibs, and then a bike jersey. The advantage of a bike jersey in particular is it has pockets in the back so you can store a gel or a bar if you're planning on racing over about an hour and a half, it could be useful. That said, either the bike shorts or the run shorts, and then whatever you want to use for a top, either a bike jersey or just a regular running top, are going to be perfectly fine. You don't need to spend $200 on a tri-suit. Number 4 on our list is a bike, and yeah, it's kind of hard to do a cycling event without a bike. So I will freely admit that I am a huge bike nerd. I started in cycling and I love bikes. That said, if you're just getting into the sport of triathlon, I think the bike you should use for your very first race is whatever's in your garage right now. I've gone to races and seen bikes worth $50 right up beside bikes that are worth $10,000. You don't need to necessarily go spend a lot of money. Use whatever's in your garage, figure out if you love the sport, and go from there. You're gonna be a little bit slower on the bike, but in terms of a first race to figure out if you like the sport, it's perfectly fine. If you're willing to spend a little bit more money, go to a bike store, get fitted, and figure out what's gonna work for you. You should not get a dedicated triathlon bike for your first bike. I would highly recommend going with a road bike or a hybrid bike. They're going to be a lot more versatile. You can use them in group rides where you can't use a triathlon bike because they're not as maneuverable. Road bikes are going to be nearly as fast as a triathlon bike. They're going to be a significant speed increase from your cruiser bike that's in your garage. Overall, no need to go out and spend a ton of money for a bike for your first race. You're just looking to figure out if you love the sport and to complete it, and any bike is going to be perfectly fine for that. Number 5 on our list is safety gear, specifically a helmet and gloves. The cool thing about helmets, at least in the US and most of the world as well, is they all have to be safety certified. So whether you're spending $40 or $50 on a helmet or something more like $150, they're both certified to keep you safe. If you are able to spend more money, what you do get out of that is better engineering in terms of fit and aerodynamics. So not just aerodynamics in terms of speed, but also better venting. They'll keep your head cooler. Definitely recommend going and trying on helmets though. There are a lot of sizes and different fit options, so getting one that fits comfortably and snugly to keep you safe is super important. The second thing, on the gloves note, I don't see people talk about gloves much, and I don't see a lot of racers wear gloves. And the reality is, yeah, putting them on will slow you down a little bit. I can say though that I've had one serious bike crash in my cycling career, and not wearing gloves took it from what would have been a sprained elbow to about 15 stitches in my palms. They were both torn open, and I couldn't use my hands for, over a month. It was extremely painful, not at all fun. I will absolutely always wear gloves, and I will strongly encourage people to do the same. Number 6 on my list is a flat repair kit. I am continually always shocked, surprised, disappointed by the amount of people that I see in races on the side of the road with a flat and they don't have the gear to fix it. Getting a flat repair kit that you can put in a saddlebag under the back of your saddle and knowing how to use it is super important. So in my flat kit, I have tire levers to be able to get the tire on and off super easily. I have a new inner tube because I don't want to deal with patches in a race environment. You're supposed to let those sit for a few minutes, and I don't want to have to do that. And then I use a CO2 inflator because it's a lot faster and easier than a mini pump. It is super important that you actually know how to use this gear. I've also seen people on the side of the road who have the gear, but they don't know how to use it. So make sure you know how your CO2 inflator works. Make sure you know that you can easily get your tires on and off. Make sure you're comfortable with it so that on race day, when your heart rate's super high and you're panicked and you're in a rush, it'll work really easily for you. Number 7 on our list, obviously you have to have running shoes. Ultimately, my actual advice is, if you're able, go into a running store, get your gait analyzed, and get some shoes from them. That said, I recognize that some people are maybe away from a running store physically, you live in a more rural environment, or you can't afford, say, the premium that a running store charges. I would generally recommend starting with shoes that are labeled as neutral. They're gonna not essentially try to correct any gait imbalances, so they're not gonna try to roll your foot inward or outward, and they're just gonna be the basic starting point for the majority of people. Like I said, if possible, get into a running store, get your gait analyzed, but if you can't, a neutral shoe is gonna be a great starting point. Number 8 on our list is 2 towels, and this is something that I didn't really realize I needed until I started racing. So the towels you're gonna want are a large, brightly colored bath towel, and then something smaller, more like this, a little pack towel or a microfiber towel. So essentially what you're gonna wanna do is lay all of your stuff out on your big bright towel, and that's gonna make it really easy for you to find your stuff as you run out of the swim and you're faced with a sea of bikes. It's also going to allow you to kind of claim your area so you don't have people encroaching into it. The second thing though is getting something like this, which is a pack towel or a microfiber towel. Doesn't have to be really big, but it's just enough that you can dry your face off, your feet off, so you can put your socks on a little bit easier, maybe your arms if you're then throwing a jersey on as well. I will absolutely take the 10 or 15 seconds to dry off to then save 30 seconds or 45 seconds putting on a top and socks. Finally, the last item on the list is something that isn't useful during your actual race, but is a crucial piece of recovery gear, and that is a foam roller. So I did an entire video on strengthening and stretching and getting rid of knots, and I hugely recommend doing that routine, but a foam roller absolutely saved my triathlon career. Being able to roll out those knots and break up those muscles and release them and stretch them out in a long routine is absolutely critical. And you can get foam rollers starting at $10, $15 up to the fancy ones, which are $25, $30. The one I use is from Trigger Point. I really like it because it's hollow, so if I'm traveling, it doesn't take up as much room in my suitcase because I can pack stuff inside it. They are gonna hurt, but you're gonna get results. They'll break up the muscle knots really, really well. There are a couple of things that I also want to talk about here real quick at the end, and that's things that I've seen people say you have to have when you get in triathlon, and it's not my experience, so hopefully I can save you a little money. One, I don't think you need a lot of pool accessories. I see people recommending that you get pull buoys and kickboards and all these things they say that you're going to use all the time in your swim training. And it's true, you will probably use those things in swim training. I've never ever swam at a pool that didn't have those things freely available to use. And I don't swim at fancy pools. You're probably going to want to use them, but I would wait until you actually get to your pool to figure out if you need to buy them. Secondly, I don't think you need a GPS running watch. They're definitely useful in training to figure out your pace, but you can also do the old school method of just using a cheapo running watch, looking on Google Maps and figuring out where your mile markers are for the routes you're gonna run, and then essentially estimating your pace as you go. Should you consider yourself at a disadvantage for not being able to spend $300 in the beginning? I don't think so at all. You definitely don't need them to get into the sport. And then lastly, I just want to say in terms of gear, a sort of general mindset is don't overthink it. At the end of the day, all you're doing is going for a swim, going for a bike ride, and going for a run. So yeah, a lot of the gear that we look at, the pros using, it's super shiny, it's sexy, you want to have it, and yeah, maybe it will make you a little bit faster here and there. But in terms of when you're just starting, don't think you have to go get that. Don't think you're at a disadvantage because somebody has a $10,000 bike and you're on a road bike with aero bars. In terms of actual performance, it decreases. You're not really at a disadvantage, so don't stress about it. My name is Justin. You are on Justin Does Triathlon. I hope you subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I would love to elaborate. Or if you have any gear questions I can help you out with, feel free as well. Have a fantastic rest of your day, everybody. Go do some training of your own. See ya.